Alright, since people keep asking about it, this is the underwater map. It was originally going to be Bastine because they have the water-based shipyards, and I misremembered that as where they built Victory cruisers, but as it turns out it was actually Acclimator, so I was wrong about that. And additionally, well, in one source it just said water-based, so I assumed underwater. It actually specifies that it's on the water surface, kind of, in another source. So there's that. So that got shelved for a while, but then I got to thinking that maybe it could be somewhere, something like Pamont or Mintoween, and they're both kind of vague enough that it could pass as underwater. One of them is supposed to be like a bunch of caves, but there's no specification if it's above or below water. And I think the other's a blank slate. I don't remember offhand, honestly, but it could be one or both. They're Quarren planets, so you know, deep sea stuff is probably not that far-fetched. But the main reason it's kind of shelved is because at this point the layout's just bad. A water map would probably be a 3 slot, maybe 5 at most, and this map is just way too big. And this layout is just not great either. Let me zoom out, turn off the fog, and show you what it's like. Alright, so this is the first landing zone. These are additional landing zones. And let me put down an A6 so you can get a sense of scale here. The map is actually quite big. So you can see, like, this is pretty comfortably large for an A6, which is good, because it's like, oh great, lots of space, but at the same time, why is this map so big? And like, the tunnels would just be very long. Like, why is this so long here? Like, this is better than just being completely closed off, which it was at one point. Like, this is after I tried to, like, salvage part of this map. But at this point, I think it's just better to just start over if I even do it at all. I think the nature settings are fun. I'll show you them in a second. If I did it again, I would almost certainly do a different layout. And I would actually test that layout before I committed to it. Which I did not do here. I would also use MS Paint for the height map. Save myself a lot of trouble here. There's a lot of things I did wrong, but this is actually also one of my oldest maps. My oldest work in progress maps. And I'm basically just holding on to it out of sunk cost fallacy at this point. Because I've deleted most other maps that are this old. But since people ask, I'll show you around it. So, first thing about it is, well, there's a hole there, but for the most part, it's pretty covered. It's pretty well done. Basically, it takes place over a big undersea chasm, and the battle would take place inside these glass chambers or whatever, which you can immediately see the problem with artillery. But you know what? I don't think having a map with artillery and flying units disabled is that bad. Gunships would be okay, but speeders, Gabas, and their kind would probably be disabled. But for a map that has a bunch of stuff disabled, it should probably not be a super massive map, you know? Turbo lasers would shoot through the walls here, but I would, if I did this again, I would probably try to avoid having that set up like that. Cute use of the, what's it called? Umbara props. The Umbara buildings. Kind of fits, actually. But yeah. These are all different colors so that I can know which one they are. Because there's 4 different textures, well, 5 counting the corners, but there's 4 different textures, each facing a different direction, so I use them color-coded so I could know which direction each one was facing, and the presumption was that I would just turn them all to like a gold or bronze color when I was done, so that they would all just look really nice and patterned. So that's kind of a nice trick idea. I don't have any consistent decoration done here. I have these Umbara grass as looking like coral, which is kind of cute. And there's the autosave. There's no consistent decoration yet. That's not necessarily a problem. That's something I could figure out, but that would be time consuming, and at this point I think the map is just a sunk cost fallacy of I need to start over and just salvage like stuff like the nature settings or whatever and ideas. Here are some ideas as well for like undersea vegetation. I had a few different experiments going on. I actually kind of like this one. There's the fish props, and they would just kind of swim about, and I think that's a cute touch. Definitely something I'd probably keep. Probably a Dianoga or two. Here's some of the weird jungle props that I asked for it might have been Elisha. I think so. And some ideas of using them scattered about. I asked for some core props that never happened, but I know Leo did too. So, honestly, I'm not in a huge hurry for them. I wanted them from Rishi, but Rishi's another map I have like my own hang-ups with in terms of how I designed it. This grass from the base game honestly looks pretty good as kelp. No hate there. This is one of the nicer parts of it, is I designed, I very carefully placed all of these. And this was like really hard for me at the time, but now would be pretty easy to do. It's just practice. But I made it look like the tunnel had been drilled into the wall. That's something I would definitely carry over. Got it here as well. That's kind of a cute idea. Something I might stick with. Here's a little gap that I thought looked cool, but realistically doesn't serve a purpose gameplay-wise. There's no reason to go back here unless there's a secondary structure, I guess. Which maybe that's what I was going for, I can't remember. There are no secondary structures out here, I don't think, so... It's kind of a... Oh, but was there a... No, I guess not. This used to be a victory class. I don't know why I didn't cover that hole. I was actually pretty good about covering holes in this. Somehow I'm missing one. That's kind of strange. So as you can see, here's the underwater chasm. What is it? Chasm. I put a giant, what is this called again? Hard cell in the middle, because this entire section used to be cleared out so that the victory's top could fit, and then when I realized it was acclimators, the acclimator didn't fit either, and it was hard to just... Okay, so I kind of got frustrated because you can't justify... The big reason this got put off in the first place was before this was a problematic layout, or I realized it was a problematic layout, is that you can't justify well, at least to my mind, I can't justify forcing a unit restriction like no flying units and no artillery on a map that isn't even lore accurate in the first place. In Elisha, the argument was, well, it's explicitly the wind is so powerful that you have to be basically an ace pilot like Han Solo to land on the planet, so I think it makes sense that you restrict flying units and bombers from that planet. I think that just makes sense there, but doesn't if Vashj'ir isn't even underwater. I forget which one's which, but I guess it could be used for Pamont or Mintween, but in those cases it would be something like 4 or 3 slots, so this is already way too big for that. I don't know. There's potential to be done with decorating here, but at the same time, why salvage this layout when I can do it better. It's not a total loss. I learned a lot about how to use these rocks and to stack them like this, and that's definitely been used a lot in other maps to great effect. So it's not like nothing was gained from here. So I can find a good angle to show how this looks like in the ocean. The fog here is super intense, and that's purposely done so that, like, it's got like the blurring effect of being underwater, and like that's just endless nothingness. But because it's underwater, your mind has a hard time distinguishing it from there, which is still inside the map, and there, which is just the empty space. So I actually think that aspect's pretty good. I'd probably do something similar if I made another. The landing zones. I should talk about those. So, how do you justify landing zones in an underwater map? You have glass tunnels that lead upward forever. Honestly, I would have done them even further than I did here, but this isn't terrible. I would have made them go even higher, but at the time, this is way pre-Exila nonsense, so I was probably a bit shy about how high to make stuff go. But yeah. So that's Vashj'ir / Pavant / Mintween / nothing. Definitely not a common use map, that's for sure. But yeah, this is just problematic. This is fine. Having these two right here basically means, why are you not attacking from this direction every time? Why would you ever go this way? And it's also kind of terrible to have like the generator right outside the shield dome and directly on the way. I did it because I ran out of space, but that just means I didn't plan out my space correctly in the first place. Anyway, so this is the underwater map that will probably never be. I think I've talked about it in Admiral previews last year. It's still not going to be a thing, most likely. I know that probably makes people sad, but parts of it, these ideas have been salvaged into other things better. And the underwater aspect itself might still be a thing for some Quarren planet. Oh, that cut into that a little bit. But yeah, there probably is potential for an underwater planet map someday, and I think I would enjoy doing it, but it's something I would definitely do from scratch, not using a 2.5-year-old layout that is very, very clearly not great. Even with like my edits, adding this, which is great, there's still too many problems around the base, and I don't see an easy way to fix that. Anyway, this is mostly just a video of me talking, but hopefully you've seen enough to enjoy this. If I'm jumping around too quickly for you to get a good view, I apologize. I'll try to just maybe shut up and do a slow zoom through. Let me see here. How far do I zoom? Okay. Let me see if I can just get a view in the first person, because that's probably the most interesting part of the map, is the first person view. Here we go. So I'll just move around the map and you can enjoy the view. Hopefully I'll do something better but similar someday.